values of that therapist
Yeah.
and what they are going to do. Yes, their life, and for many
Hmm.
of them who are the senior therapists, I
Hmm.
call them the people who are in the space for some time and they have the maturity and they
Hmm.
have all the services built together. Uh, and they've been doing it for years
Hmm.
versus someone who is new to the practice, slightly more advanced
Hmm.
and wanting to do, and they don't
Hmm.
have sometimes the support services. Sometimes they want to do those remote
Hmm.
sessions or therapies using the new era or new
Hmm.
tech era, post-COVID era, where it is getting for families and therapists that comfort of
Hmm.
delivering therapy over a computer
Hmm.
session. Their needs are totally different.
Hmm.
And in those cases, you have to put yourself in their shoe as
Hmm.
well. So how do you, and I
Hmm.
just hear
Hmm.
from you that when you said, and also as a company
Hmm.
which is putting their own,
Hmm.
sometime the bootstrap
Hmm.
company, and you really want to go to market sooner with all
Hmm.
the products in this one, how do you personally balance the pressure to grow quickly with
Hmm.
the need to build something meaningful and high quality?
I think the big thing here, and it's always a balance because as you know, launching a product, there's always what about this? What about this? Well, this small tweak. And it is a never-ending battle. I mean, that's the whole class. That's why I mean, product is a role. The battle between the CEO and CTO and CP, it's always existing for these reasons. But I think the biggest thing to do the balance is, answering those fundamental questions. Does it, as we said before, MVP, but is the viable product? Does it work?
Right.
Is it going to affect the session? Is our biggest thing. If it's negatively going to affect the session, we can't release it. It has to be seamless in the sense of it's not going to allow a therapist to have an ineffective session. It's going to be able to has to work on day one. So that's the biggest thing. And then when it comes to quality, it's more the answer is this helpful? Because a lot of times there is, coming from building the product myself or with my team is there's so many small challenges I wish were polished, whether it be some UI UX issues. But at the end of the day, if it's not good enough, but if it can bring value, that's better than their current experience. So how I always think about this is this an improvement compared to the current experience? If it is the case, we can check mark or check that box of the product is ready or at least good enough to start getting users onto it because it's working. We're improving the sessions, we're improving the outcomes. Now we can start tweaking it a bit more, but that's probably the big thing there. And when it comes to speed and growth, I think, as I touched on before, feature creep is your biggest enemy here because, as we said before, there's not many things out there helping therapists. I mean, post COVID, more and more organizations are coming up. There's so much you want to do. And some things are completely out of the scope of our product. So it's really from day one, always going back to what are the problem we're trying to solve? And is this new feature going to solve the problem? And if the answer is, if you can't say yes instantly, okay, let's work on that on V2. So I think it's really important for V1 or when you're launching something is getting back to, am I solving the problem? Anything that's tertiary, well, let's consider it down the road just so we can get this working and launched. Because as you know, once you launch the product, there will be other interest, there'll be other feedback. Therapists or individuals in the health field who've never heard of you before will now be giving feedback that will reshape your mind. So I think it's so important to make sure it's working, it's bringing improvement, and then anything that is tertiary, focusing on V2. Because time in market is very important. So speed to market is oftentimes more important than because you want time in market to get real life feedback in a real life ecosystem because testing can only do so much when it comes to product feedback for revenue.
Well, when you're talking about feature creep, and
Mhm.
we know that everybody is talking about AIs these days, and there is a big
Mhm.
part of the world who thinks that the AI is Chat GPT.
Yeah.
Have you heard your people asking you questions about, are you using GPT? Are you using large language models? Or why am I not seeing? And
Mhm.
is it something that you're using, something you want to use? Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so we are very AI centered in a sense of using the latest technologies to try and be innovative here.
Mhm.
So a lot of the times when speak, and this is very interesting, like you said, in any industry, you have people on both ends of the spectrum who are very tech focused, who are building their own models, building their own games, who are almost bleeding edge when it comes to these technologies. On the other end, people who ask them to print out. I mean, I used to work for other organization, I won't say names, who's like, can you print out the emails for me? Because I want to read them in paper. Like you have two completely different ends. So this is a very common thing is like, how are we using AI? How are we using AI? And we have some of our AI features in our platform, such as our 2D to 3D, allowing you to take, a photo of your dog and bring it into the sand tray or dollhouse. And that's a really big use case. But I think, as we said before, one of the things is a lot of people are interested in it. But like with all the challenges of AI, the so what? Why does it matter? And how does AI help? And I think that's the biggest challenge with any industry or any product using AI is AI making it more beneficial. So I think a lot of times you think of these very, like we're using a lot of AI technology and kind of being able to build features and games very quickly, but then you always have to come back and say, this is cool. Is how useful is this actually? So a lot of times how we've kind of curved that or made it more effective is we have ideas, but instead of us just building whatever we think of, is asking our therapists and our clients, hey, what are you currently doing? What would be valuable to you? And oftentimes you have to shut your mouth because you would be thinking, hey, well, if you had this feature, or you could actually with ChatGPT and using agentic models, you could do X, Y, and Z. And a lot of times you start scope creeping to a high degree when oftentimes it could be as simple as I just want to make a flash game where I can put emotional cards on the screen. That's all I want. And you have to sit back and realize, okay, let's build for what they need, educate them on the possibilities, but you should be really doing product-led growth or customer feedback-led growth, where they're the ones dictating what they want rather than telling them that, oh, with AI, you can do all these complex language models when maybe they just want a simple flash game and giving them what they want while also trying to educate the market on what is possible. I think that's the balance that's always challenging.
No, and I don't think you answered my questions. And there was a piece there where you talked about AI is cool and it is going to transform the world, how we live, how
Mhm,
we function. But it's not everything that have AI. So there is application where it's useful there, and it has to be meaningful,
mhm,
and not everywhere it has to be put in. So thank you for sharing that piece. And
mhm,
I was like almost reaffirming that, because we at all time either get asked, how do you use it?
mhm,
Show me the model. I'm like, I can, but it's not going to help.
mhm,
But so looking back, like
mhm,
it's close to
mhm,
big launch coming
mhm.
up very soon. What's the biggest thing you have learned about building something from zero?
I think the biggest thing besides just after you realize a scope creep is really trying, really validating every step of the way that you're building value. Because one thing I think that comes up a lot is when you're building something and even building a startup, you'll have an idea and someone will say, well, that already exists. No idea out there is ever unique. There's always building on something. So I think it's really staying firm and saying, this is the value. If I'm still bringing value, we'll keep going forward. Because I think you get feedback and people always say, well, that kind of already exists. Oh, that already exists. Or I don't know. Because everyone loves to give feedback. And I think the biggest thing from building from zero is first talking to your actual customer. If I call my mom up and say, hey, I have this idea for a marketplace, her feedback, although useful, I love talking to my mother, not very useful because she's not buying the product. So I think that's the big thing is you love to surround yourself with people who think like you. You need to talk to the users who are going to use it and pay for it. So I think that's the biggest thing. And then secondly, it is really, really important. It's like steering a ship, having a very clear mission and vision that you always reiterate. And I think that's one challenge I learned along the way is, I had to kick off with my team. And then a month from now, I was like, well, everyone knows what's going on. I'm assuming they have all the same ideas as me because, well, it's logical to me. So I think the big thing is always having those touch points of saying, this is the mission and vision and restating it. This is why it's important and bringing the importance back into it, I think is extremely important, for lack of a better word, just because when you have a lot of different parties trying to build something that's never really been done before, you need to make sure they're, as the product creator or as the lead of it, you're really steering the ship all the way from the junior dev all the way to the other parties you're working with, because I think that can be very easily overlooked. And that's probably something I take back 100% is that really treating it like a ship going down. You can guide it, but there's so many other parties here. It's very impossible to control. So you need to have that clear North Star. So I don't have to talk to every team member every single day. Everyone's kind of rowing in the same direction. And I think that's probably the biggest learning is as silly as it sounds, and I mean this is always a common thing, is keep stating the why, the mission, vision, values of the product or the idea, and constantly reaffirming that, even if it sounds like overkill every day. Starting a meeting, we're launching marketplace because X, Y, and Z to make therapy more accessible, and keep saying it, and eventually it does make such a big difference because people know the why behind what they're building.
I think I hear you. Your message is loud and clear in that case that if everyone on the team has to know who we are working for. So we
Hmm.
are working for therapists to make their life easier.
Hmm.
Yes, in the end user. So and whichever is your mission,
Hmm.
when you are built and baked into that mission,
Hmm.
you know that you are thinking, as we were talking
Hmm.
earlier, that okay, who is it for and what they are going to
Hmm.
do. And this is amazing. And there's
Hmm.
such a golden nuggets that
Hmm.
you have shared for all the new product creators
Hmm.
and the product managers that I'm very sure they
Hmm.
are going to enjoy listening to your wisdom here. And then I'm very sure if they want to reach out to you, is there any message you want to give it to therapists from this our channel? As you know, we are
Hmm.
getting live to two different continents at this
Hmm.
time. Anything you want to tell about PlaySpace to our viewers?
Yeah, I think the big thing with PlaySpace, as you touched on, is making therapy more engaging, exciting, and accessible. So, and I really think one of our missions as a business is really educating and working with clinicians to really realize what is possible out there. So if you want to check out PlaySpace, you can reach out to me or check out PlaySpace health. Just because there's so many cool things out there, and a lot of how the therapy obviously field moves forward is from learning from others. So connecting with our clinicians and kind of speaking about it is a really unique way we're learning more. And also a lot of the clinicians we work with is pushing and learning about these new boundaries, especially work with marginalized communities such as youth, where they're growing up in technology. So really meeting your patient where they're at.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for your time this morning. And best wishes and good luck for the launch of PlaySpace to your entire team. And Matt, we are can't wait for the this whole splash to change the world for us.
For
Thank you
sure.
once
Thank
again.
you so much for having me on.